The story is told about a string ensemble, not professionals, but they were rehearsing for a concert in a neighborhood church. The program called for a wonderful piece with an oboe. And the oboe wasn't not a normal part of the ensemble. And during the rehearsal, it was evident that something was wrong. The leader of the ensemble insisted that the oboe was out of tune. The musician adjusted the reed on the oboe and they tried the piece again, and still not a very pleasant sound. After a few adjustments, the piece still didn't sound right, and the leader was suggesting that they just drop it. At that, an elderly gentleman came from the back of the church and politely said to the leader, "Forgive me for intruding, but doesn't the orchestra tune itself to the oboe?" And that's the truth. The oboe is the foundational note, and all the others tune their instruments to be in tune with the oboe. The members of the ensemble were dumbfounded. They had ignored this basic performance principle. All the other instruments were in tune with each other, but they were out of tune with the oboe. And once they adjusted, the piece went off flawlessly. On the fourth Sunday after Easter, we always read from one of the gospel stories about the Good Shepherd. It's kind of a rich image that has endured the test of time, even in a society such as ours, where there aren't many sheep, and there certainly are not many shepherds. If you ever had the privilege of going to New Zealand, you know that the image is still quite alive there. You can wait for a long time to get through a road when the sheep have overtaken it. One of the reflections of the shepherd is that he really does call each of us by name, and we're urged to listen to the shepherd's voice. And keeping with the image of the oboe, we need to understand that Christ is the foundational note. And it doesn't matter if you and I are in tune with each other with some idea or concept. If we're not in tune with the oboe, with the Christ, we're really out of tune. Perhaps the liturgy of the Word today encourages us first to examine our own lives and to see what is the controlling priority there and how it resonates with what Christ asks of us. Maybe it's sports, our own or our children's, or a business practice, or a quest for more money or social acceptance. Or on a more positive side, maybe our priorities are faith, family, friends, gospel values. Once we can admit what rules our lives, we need to see how that resonates with the call of Christ to live our lives in service to the other and in concert with his teachings. We may think we are in tune, and the voice of the shepherd needs adjusting, because sometimes it seems odd to talk about selflessness when society always tells us to look out for number one. Or how can we stress the care and concern that ought to be expressed to the poor when social services agencies are scrambling for funding, both personal and government? How can we talk about the dignity of all of our lives when society does not think that all lives are deserving of respect? How can we talk about the value of self-control and self-sacrifice in a culture that promotes the principle, if it feels good, doesn't hurt anybody else, do it? Today is a day to remind ourselves that, like the oboe, it is Christ who gives us the perfect pitch. It is Christ that is the standard by which we ought to measure our lives. Today, the Good Shepherd calls each of us by name. We need to listen to his voice and to live our lives accordingly.